So good afternoon. Can you hear me? Mic on? Mic on? Nope. Nope. Keep talking. Hi, my name is Gary Sorrentino. I'll just yell it. And I'm the global CIO at Zoom. And like the gentleman said, so I spent a long time on Wall Street. I recently retired in 2019 from JP Morgan, and I met this person called Eric Yuan about 7 days later. And he asked me a question. He asked me why I retired. I had the wrong answer because I'm still working. But I will tell you that from my past career, the last 3 years working from Zoom has been the best of my whole career, the way we help people all over the world. But today, we're going to talk about how do we empower people to do their best. So I'm going to take it back a little. Let's talk about where we are today, but let's really focus on where we're going. Okay, let's go back a little. When we first started talking about the pandemic, and that's what, almost 3 years, next week, the week after, right? Remember, was it that Friday? I think it was actually March 13th in the United States, and they told us to go home. Everybody thought it was going to be 2 weeks, and here it is. We're celebrating 3 years. But here's what we did. We changed the way we live, and we changed the way we work. And there were a lot of differences that happened. So when we first started talking about it, it was really about moving forward. And moving forward was a phase that was, when we look back, easy. Because all we had to do was connect people who were now physically distant. And when we look back, we go, wow, we did pretty good. People got connected, right? And then we started to enjoy new versions of productivity. And we talked about that for probably the first year, about how different companies are connecting people. But then we started getting into, well, what's that word? Hybrid working. Now this is a little harder, because now we have to figure out this. We developed something called work styles. Everybody in companies, you put out work styles, right? What was the style? Always in the office, semi in the office, never in the office. You had lots of different names for it. And we had different work beliefs. But the problem was, how do we mesh all this together with inclusion? Make people on parity? How do we continue with culture? So there were a lot of problems, and we're still facing them when it comes to hybrid working. But right now, let's talk about the knowledge workers, right? Who has knowledge workers working for them? Knowledge workers, okay? 50 million of them got sent home during the pandemic. But think about the knowledge workers. Think about yourselves. Here's what we learned during the pandemic. We learned how we want to work. We learned when we want to work. And we actually learned where we want to work. Okay, let's talk about how. Here's what I did. I worked for this great tech company who sends me home with a 24-inch monitor and a laptop. I don't know about you, how productive can I be? So I bought a 36-inch curve. And then there's this great service called Amazon who sent me a note saying, hey, you know that monitor? 40% off today, now there's 2. Okay? Who upgraded their own home during the pandemic? Do you know that is the greatest challenge that companies have now? Because think about me. I went back to Zoom headquarters a couple of weeks ago, and there's a 24-inch monitor where my laptop can connect. Where do I want to work? Right? And how do I want to work? Okay, when? You know what we found out during the pandemic? You know there's 24 hours in a day. And we all don't work the same from 8 to 5. Some of us want to work very early in the morning, and then maybe take a break, take care of childcare, go for a run, have another cup of coffee, come back later, work later. And so during the pandemic, we learned when we work the best. You know when I work the best? Okay, so if you get my card later, and you want to send me an email, and you want an answer that's greater than yes or no, that's going to come 10 o'clock New York time. Because around 10 o'clock New York time, I pour myself a cup of coffee, and that's when I do my deeper thinking. That's when I'll do a spreadsheet. That's when I got to figure out something more complicated than the word yes or the word no. Okay, how many people have changed their work times? But think about the world we live in, because now we're trying to work together. But I'm working 10 o'clock at night answering those emails, and I'm expecting or not expecting someone to be able to read them then. So this is very complicated now. You know, we used to call this asynchronous working. And this is one of the things we'll talk about later about how we teach people to work asynchronously. How many people work global? Okay, so when you work global, you learned asynchronous. It was just part of the burden of working global, and we'll talk about that later. Okay, where? We figured out where we work the best. recently we had an announcement that Zoom works in Tesla now. And we started working with Tesla a long time ago, and they gave us some statistics, which I find hard to believe. The number of people that actually leave their home and go sit in their Tesla for 8 hours a day in their driveway and work out of their car. I don't know what kind of home life they have, but if I gotta leave my house and go work in the car, I gotta change the kids and the wife, okay, at the beginning. But at the end of the day, it's amazing how many people have decided where they want to work during the pandemic. And I don't know about anybody here. I fly all over the world, but I'm working where this guy's working. I want you to look at this next slide. Actually, there's a slide missing, so I'm going to tell you what it says. The employees that we sent home, I want you to think about yourself first. The employees that we sent home 3 years ago are not the same employees coming back. The employees that we sent home 3 years ago are not the same employees that are coming back. I'm going to ask you this question twice. Ready? I agree with that for myself. Right? And I agree that the staff that I sent home is different coming back. So now they're thinking about all these great words. And we talked about quiet quitting. You've heard about quiet quitting. You've heard about quiet hiring, the great resignation, right? I'm just going to ask a quick question. It's going to come up later. How many people have sent out a note to their employees and told them to come to work 3 days a week, 2 days a week, 1 day a week? Come on, show of hands. Don't be embarrassed, right? We call that mandate, right? So they've come up with, the companies that have asked their employees to come back several days a week, they've added 2 words. You know what the 2 words are? Half work Mondays and do nothing Fridays, right? Because you force them to do what? Come back to the office 3 days a week. So we're adding to this list. I think there's a couple of good ones here. We're getting productivity paranoia and proximity bias, and those are real. You know, some of these are just joke words, but proximity bias is becoming very important also. Okay, so today I want to talk to you about market trends, some predictions. In case you look at the Zoom blog, I just did a Zoom blog on predictions. How we're going to empower people. I'm going to give you some challenges for your own company. And just at the end, of course, I got to tell you something about Zoom. Okay? So the last 5 slides, they'll be about Zoom. So let's talk about market trends. So first of all, before we talk about these trends, I got these from 3 sources. The first source was Gartner. We all know Gartner, right? Second source was Forrester. But I had to check both Gartner and Forrester, so I had to ask the king of all sources. Guess what I asked? ChatGPT. And it gave me the 100% identical list that I paid for to get from Gartner and Forrester. Believe it or not, right? ChatGPT. So let's talk about these. Obvious. There's definitely going to be a demand for hybrid work. Now, we have a couple opinions on this. When the pandemic started, how many people were a CIO? Okay, when the pandemic started, I'm a CIO. That was our year. The year of the CIO was when the pandemic started, for sure. As we came out of the pandemic, it's the year of the CFO, right? The CFO is now telling us financial challenges, economic downturn, can't do much with the office and things like that. 2023, we're labeling the year of the CEO. And here's why we think this, and it's also in my prediction, is that we are going to have to figure this out, hybrid working at each company this year. And we know we have the CEOs who are standing on top of the building. If you look at my LinkedIn, some I used to work for, right? And they're asking people to come back because they're supporting half-day Mondays and no-work Fridays, having come back 3 days a week. And then you have others who are trying to figure out what the right hybrid work model is for their company. And truly, there's no one answer for inside a company because we're all different, right? How many people, I'm going to say this, I better raise hand. How many people are on IT, right? Come on, IT, 2 Coronas and a slice of pizza, we get IT people to do work all weekend, right? So it's so much different for us, but a lot of what you're going to hear today, don't think about yourself as an IT group. We're very, very resilient, flexible, and unique, but think about it as the business you support. Okay, so the second one is omni-channel engagement. You know what I don't think everybody realized? My clients and your clients went through the same thing that we went through. However, they had to figure out how to buy your products and services along with keeping their companies together. So they had all the challenges that we had, but additional challenges. And today, customers want to do business with you the way they want to do business with you, at the time they want to do it, through the mechanism that they want to do it. Some want to chat with you. No one's calling, right? Some want to call you, email you, websites. But what we hear from the customers are they want what the employees want. They want flexibility. They want non-transactional. They want humanized contact. They're beginning to sound like our employees. And another problem with this omni-channel engagement is, while the pandemic is starting to evolve, they threw us a curveball. Who joined the workforce? Gen Z, right? And Gen Z does business in many different ways. How many people have anybody a Gen Z? Oh, I got to pick on you. I'm sorry today, okay? But I have a Gen Z home, and we have a choice. So I live in East Hampton. I can't go to the pizza parlor that I can almost see from my house. You know why? We have to call them up and say, hey, Joe, I need a large pizza. But the one I have to drive 2 miles to has a website. We're not allowed to buy from the guy at the end of the street because the Gen Z will only order from the guy who's got a website. And he said, by the way, I can now SMS him to order pizza. So what's happening is 30% of the workforce is changing. They're becoming Gen Zs. They're changing the way we, thank you very much, I do appreciate it though, but they're changing the way we think because they ask that magic question every time we say something. You know what the question is? Why? Why? And you know what? We always give them an answer. What's the answer? Because we always did it that way, right? So we're, right, I agree with you. So now we're changing. And so omnichannel is becoming very important. AI. I already talked about AI, right? Think about AI in its form. I use ChatGPT to almost check everything I talk about as one last check. Now, I don't actually go to ChatGPT and say, give me all the information, and I put it up on the screen, but I use it to help me along the way. I just wrote an article about how salespeople should sell using stories, right? Stories people really remember. But I wrote it on a plane, and I was just blocked. I just couldn't get that first line out. You know, sometimes you just need the first line. So I went to my buddy ChatGPT, and it gave me 3 paragraphs of how salespeople should use stories. I actually learned something from the article, and it came out with a better article because of it. So AI is in everything we do. But think about it. How many people have been on a call run by translation? Right? I did one the other day. I met a client. He was in Colombia. He said to me, I don't speak really good English. I said, I really speak bad Spanish. And so we had a whole hour conversation using AI and translation. And when we were all done, he said, that was pretty cool. He learned English somewhere along the way, right? But it was easier for him to communicate with us. So you're going to hear about all these new technologies coming in place, and we know we have to run this way towards them. We have to embrace them and figure out the right ways to use them in our company. Cloud-based solutions. This is how I look at it. We're at an age now where we can deliver the way consumer products are delivered at enterprise scale. And that's what cloud-based solutions are, right? Think about in your real world, you know, the iPhone that you use for your personal, you download an application and you're using it how long before you download it? Seconds. It just works, right? It didn't even come with a training manual. And now we're seeing a great expansion of cloud-based solutions in almost all the enterprises. I came from a very regulated world. I work for 2 of the largest banks in the world. And as a CISO also, I said no to this solution for I can't remember how many years, right? And that's totally changed now. They've become more secure, and our clients and their clients are demanding that we move to cloud-based solutions. Interoperability. This is about toggle tax, right? We have to make it so that everything connects. Look, when I was younger working, the greatest tool was cut and paste, right? Because we had 2 applications, and I'd work here and take the result, and I'd cut and paste it over here, right? And then after that was done working on it, I'd cut and paste it back over here, and hopefully I did it all right. But today it really is about integration and interoperability. The people who work for us are not going to stand for us not having this integration. They're not going to stand for having separate applications. And I can tell you that the younger crew, they're doing this all in their real life. They're integrating between all the consumer apps. And when I sit and talk to them, they ask simple questions. If I can do this for free, why can't I do it at work? And the last one, well, bread and butter, right? Security and privacy. That's got to be on every single trend. Okay. My predictions. They're going to align a little bit. Organizations will truly embrace a hybrid experience. And I didn't use hybrid model because I used experience. It really is that companies are going to have to figure out how to create that experience for their employees. And you're going to see that in some of the challenges I'm going to come up with next. We have to create that workspace for the digital natives. Now, the few here that are digital natives, you know what they call us? We're digital immigrants, right? We're learning how to use technology. They grew up on glass. And we have to figure out how can we create those workspaces to make them happy. And it actually thinks about rethinking about our own offices. And we're going to talk a lot more about that in a minute. Meeting intelligence. We have been saying smarter, not harder, for how many years? Right? Yet everyone here is still taking notes. Still taking notes, right? I went to college so long ago I can't even remember. I took notes then, I'm taking notes now. Why isn't the meeting taking notes? We have to bring meeting intelligence to where it needs to be. And then the last thing is that workspace, right? It has to come out, right? Between having the workspaces for the digital native and creating environments where people can actually work and collaborate. Okay, so let's talk about empowering people to do their best. A couple statistics. This next number is a big number. This next number, I'm going to put it up in a second, is 58%. That is the number of people that currently are working that feel that their skills have gone stale during the pandemic. Now, if you're a CEO of a company and you look out at your employee list and you find out that 58% of them think they don't have the skills that they need. Here's the worst number. 70%. Okay, say someone's got 1,000, anybody got 1,000 people in their organization? Let's say 100. Okay, anybody got 100? Okay. How do you feel about 70% of your employees of that 100 that feel they're not prepared for the future of work right now? Now, the second part about this is, though it's good, is that of the people that they surveyed, almost 90% are motivated. They're motivated to learn more. And about 90% are doing it without you. They got to be doing something on those half-day Mondays and those don't work Fridays, but they're motivated to learn on their own. Okay, here's my first challenge. What I need everybody to do here is think about how do you upskill your workforce. Now, I didn't say a certain word. What word didn't I say? I didn't say training. You know why? Training teaches me to do my job. Upskilling me teaches me how to work. You know, I travel all over the globe, and Zoom talks to a lot of EDUs. You know what I found outside the United States? Outside the United States, they teach their children how to learn, and then they teach them biology and algebra and things. Do we do that here in the United States? We teach them the classes, but we don't teach them how to learn. So we have to teach people how to work. And that's what upskilling is about. We've put a lot of technology on the desktop during the pandemic, right? We've thrown them a lot of changes. Who uses Excel? 22 years we've been using Excel. The average user, 2%. How many years do we have to use that tool to go beyond 2%? 2% we use that. So this is about upskilling. Now the reason is, why am I challenging you to upskill your workforce? Because here's what I want. I want you to unleash that human excellence that's already in your employees. We just have to figure out a way to get it out, right? We have to give them that upskilling, that push that they need to use the tools to work differently. Here's a great example. When I go into the office, that is a non-productive day for me, okay? Because that day I didn't chain smoke Zoom calls. I didn't answer 600 mails. I didn't do 7 sales reports, and I probably didn't even look at a spreadsheet. but I had the best meaningful day of my week. We have to teach our employees that is a good day, that you went into that office. How many people's offices are open? Okay, so I go to companies all over, and you know what I find? When people come into the office, you know what they're doing? They're recreating home. You know how they're recreating home? One sitting over there, one sitting over there. What's the reason you brought them in? So that they could just sit distant from each other and work like they're working home? So it's about how do we teach them this new way of work? How do we teach them that they can change their priorities, and it's okay if you didn't answer 600 mails today? And you know what I do? I don't put out of office. I just go, having a meaningful day. And that's my response for mail. You'll get a response after 6, right? But that day's a value day for me. But how many people feel that if they don't do actually their job, it's a productive day? And so it's all about upskilling. Now there is a Zoom slide here, right? This is what Zoom One does. And Zoom One really gives you the solutions you need so that your individual workers can be upskilled. There's a second part to this one too also. Provide a platform for productivity. We have to figure out what do we need to provide for our employees that'll make them productive. Because here's what you need to do. We have to stop thinking about home and work. Don't we have to start worrying about that our employees can work from wherever they need to be and not just whether they're at home or in the office? But we get this very binary view when we look at it through hybrid. What are we doing to make sure that our employees can work anywhere they need to be? And what I love is when companies open up, they allow me to talk to the employees. I love it. Because when I talk to them, they say things like, well, it's your first day back, how is it? He said, well, the Milky Way bar I left on my desk 3 years ago is still there. I've been working my ass off 12 hours a day for the last 3 years. Maybe they could have painted, right? And we're going to talk more about that. And again, that's the Zoom One suite. The Zoom One suite actually fills these two needs. It says, how do we unleash human excellence in your company, but how do we provide the solutions that employees can work anywhere they need to be? Okay, here's a tough one. Reimagine your modern workspace. I want everybody to dig down and give me an honest answer, okay? From the time you closed the building until the time you started letting people back, who made material changes? That's a no one in the room, okay? So here's what I want you to think about. Have you earned your employee's commute? You're asking that employee to get into a car, get into a train, wherever it is, take an hour, hour and a half out of their day and commute to your location. What have you done to earn that? And that's where we're really focused on, is now that you got them back into the room, you didn't upskill them to teach them what to do when they came back, because they're just recreating home. You didn't teach them that productive days can just be meaningful days. And you didn't change the environment. When I asked the same gentleman, I said, okay, so they didn't paint. He goes, yeah, but the conference room that I went into, it was 5 years old in 2019, now it's just 3 years older. Just because we didn't use it doesn't mean it didn't become an antique, right? Okay, anybody know how many conference rooms are in the world? Did you say 100 million? 100 million conference rooms in the world. All right, this stat's about 4 months old, so I hope it's not true. Guess how many are not video enabled? Somebody better say 90% are not video enabled. Now, to my Gen Z crowd, you walk into a room and you see this little starfish. One said to me, what is this room used for, a broom closet? Right? There's no value to that room if there's not a screen there. Right? And so when I talk to companies all over the world, and when I sit with the CEO, I usually ask them one question. That is the question I ask them. You're on top of the building telling people to come back to work. Did you earn their commute? And most of them are honest. You know what they say? No, didn't even think about it. Okay, and that's where Zoom Spaces comes in. I'm sorry there's a little bit of Zoom in here, but that's where Zoom Spaces comes in, because what we put in the Spaces is, Zoom One's about people, individuals. But Zoom Spaces is, now that you bring them back in, how do we keep them working together? How do we give them the solutions about inclusion, parity, smart gallery, all the little buzzwords that you already know, that's in the Zoom Spaces area. Okay, focus on total experience. Most companies Mine too, what I came from, used to work on the employee experience was the HR problem. The customer experience, the sales problem. Why did we never think about making them align? Now, I love stories, so I'm glad that you're indulging me, but I want you to imagine this. We're all in, I was just there last week, we're all in South Florida. It's hot, it's 100 degrees. We're in our car, air conditioning's blasting. We want iced coffee. What do they call it at Starbucks? Nitro brew, right? You get into that lane, the drive-through lane, because you're not getting out of the air conditioning, right? You're gonna go through the drive-through lane, you're gonna order nitro brew. Okay, you get in there, you get there, your window comes down, you tell the guy nitro brew, car in front of you, car behind you, can't get out of the lane. 25 minutes later, you're still in the car waiting for your nitro brew. How do you feel? Say it. Angry. Upset? When that window opens up, what are you going to, first thing you're going to do? Come on. Yell. Okay, the person opens the window up, looks at the side of the cup, and says, Gary, you've been in line 25 minutes. This nitro brew is on us. How do you feel? What do you say? Good, thank you. Okay, customer experience or employee experience? How many people think it's customer experience? Okay, how many people think it's employee experience? How many people are not going to play along with me? Okay, the true answer is it's total experience, because he didn't get yelled at and he was empowered to help the customer at all levels. The person who handed you the coffee had the power to make you happy all along the chain. And that's why when we talk about total experience, it's about how do we empower our employees? How do we make them better at what they do? You know, I have one more story here. Sorry, I hope you indulge me. I actually used it at, anybody at Enterprise Connect last year? So anyway, I did it at Enterprise Connect last year. We talked to different vendors, and they talked about how they can improve their customer experience. And what they did was, I was in New York one night, and it's a true story. 11:30 at night, I got a little bleep on my phone. 11:30. It's one of those food vendors, right? Now think about this. What could they blink you 11:30 at night on a Saturday night in Manhattan that would make me pick up the phone and do something? 2 words. What was it? No, 2 words. Ice cream. And I clicked on it, and it said 2 quarts of ice cream outside your door, $22.50, 30 minutes. I had to try. The moral of the story is rum raisin and mint chocolate chip. But I had to call the guy the next day and say, what did you do? He said, look, we've been working on total experience. We've been working on empower our employees. At 11 o'clock, I sat down with my employees and said, how do we get 20 more orders before we close tonight? Who's got a good idea? They came up with ice cream. I said, did you make the 20? He said, I made the 50 and the 40 I turned down. Because he empowered his employees to think about the clients, and he went to total experience. Now, that's where Zoom comes in, because we have a great contact center. We have a Zoom virtual agent. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the Zoom side. I'm just trying to show you on some of the challenges you're having where Zoom meets. Okay, AI and the latest tech. You know, we keep talking about this, AI and the latest tech, ChatGPT. I see everybody taking notes, right? We have to get to a place where this is recorded. But think about the world we're in now. How many people have salespeople? How well are your salespeople doing with your clients? Wouldn't you love it if that when your salesperson hangs up that phone, some agent taps them on the shoulder and says, hi, you know what I heard? You speak 32 words a minute. Your client speaks 16. He's not understanding you. Hey, I know your favorite word is right, because you said it 3,200 times, right? In the same call. And by the way, your firm has 5 key messages that they want you to say on every sales call. Someday you're going to hit one of them, right? But that's where we got to look today. We have to look at how do we empower our employees, right? By giving them the tools to be better. Right? Look, I'd love to hear this from a robot. I think I'd hate to hear it from a colleague. Right? Remember, I don't know if everybody remembers the old days we used to jack in, double headsets, we used to listen, and then we had to critique them. Wouldn't it be great if you could just have agents running in the background and it would critique your salespeople? Think about this. Who presents? Who presents? Okay, when you present, someone does a PowerPoint. Maybe you have a marketing team, maybe you're stuck doing it yourself. Okay, but then there's this thing called a talk track. Okay, so think about the talk track. Most people type it. Hi, my name is Gary Sorrentino. And then when I read it back, it sounds like an Audible book. I fall asleep with Audible, because here's why. they're reading back something that was never supposed to be read out loud. It was supposed to be read. Well, here's what I do. I use AI in all my presentations. I take this presentation, I open it up in Zoom, I get a clicker, I stand, I put a glass with ice. You can figure out what goes on top of the ice, and I stand back and I go, hey, my name is Gary Sorrentino and I'm the Global CIO of Zoom, and today we're going to have a great time. I cut and paste the transcription that was done through AI into the slides. When I'm standing up here, I'm reading my spoken voice. I'm not reading my written voice. I don't sound like I'm reading from a recorder using AI. So today it's all about AI and the latest tech. Again, there's a Zoom solution for this. We want you to move from we talked about regular working, we talked about purposeful meetings. Are we ever going to get to intelligent meetings? Isn't that where we need to go? How do we make it so that actually the meeting is smarter than us? Who records meetings? 98% of the recordings done are never listened to. Okay, who's gonna, if you miss a meeting, are you really gonna sit there and listen for 90 minutes at that meeting? But wouldn't it be great if through artificial intelligence, I can send you a 2-paragraph summary of that meeting? We have to get to intelligent meetings. And this is where Zoom plays. They play in what we call right now Zoom AI, and there's a product called Zoom AI for sales, and you're gonna see it come up for other industries. Think about, anybody represent the law industry? Okay, so think about a lawyer. Wouldn't it be great if he could just stand up in front of the terminal and do his closing argument? And then the robot goes, okay, I don't think you understand the middle. Why? You had a 22-word cadence, you dropped to a 14-word cadence, and then you came back up to a 22-word cadence. I don't think you understand the middle of that very well. Why don't you get a little better at that part there, right? All about intelligent working. And then the last thing is we always talk about this integration and operability, and you guys know this, right? I don't have to go through it. This is all about seamless working and paying that silly toggle tax. You know, today it's really crazy. We bring up why do I have 2 screens? It's because I have 16 applications open, right? Because I don't want to pay the toggle tax. And so I don't pay the toggle tax with screen real estate. And Zoom, of course, has this great developer system. We have a great marketplace there, and that's where we're trying to work with our clients to say, we don't have to pay this toggle tax today. How can we integrate everything? I don't know if you know this about Zoom. Anybody know what the World Economic Forum is? Yep. So if you're a member of the World Economic Forum, you have a license to something called TopLink. That is their site where you get to see all the greatest dignitaries in the world talk. It's completely powered by Zoom, and you would never know it. And I can only tell you that because a year later, they let me tell you that it's completely powered by Zoom. So look, the challenges I leave you with today are unleash the human excellence in your company. Let your employees work from anywhere they need to be. Earn your employees' commute. Right? Empower them to do their very best. Let's turn working into intelligent working. And look, instead of toggle tax, I called it harmonized workflow. Thank you. I have like 5 minutes. Any questions? Debates, pushback, disputes, ads? Sir.
I understand what you're saying.
You know what? Let me put a mic on him
Okay.
so everybody can hear that. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Hello. So I understand what you're saying, and quite frankly, I already thought about some of these things in the past. But how do you handle a workload?
Just yell.
How do you handle an environment where you physically have to be there? You have to touch it, you have to fix it, you have to.
How do you handle an environment
Yep.
where you physically have
And I agree, and I should have said something, but most of what I'm talking about are for knowledge workers. And that's why I said it's not really, think outside the IT group that we represent. Think more about the business that we represent. Think about your sales force. Does your sales force have to be in the office? Actually, to tell you the truth, where I worked, the place we didn't want them was where? Because if they're in the office, where they're not? They're not with the clients. So the only thing I would say to you, sir, is I agree that there are frontline workers that we need to support. There are people that have jobs that have to be there. But think about today. Do you know we're moving desktop support back home? Right? Which we never thought we would do. Because desktop support in my life was, You got to be there all weekend for the changes, but you got to be there Monday morning because who's showing up Monday morning? The biggest problem in the world between the seat and the keyboard, right?
I have an answer to my own question.
Good.
And basically what I came up with is, I took my problem and made it into a team discussion. And so they do round robin where there's always somebody on site and the rest work from home and they all cover each other. And if it's vacation or sickness, I don't wanna hear about it. All I know is I got the coverage and the rest are working.
I think that's great, right? That's a coverage model. The only thing I would say was, are you giving them the tools to do that better?
Within my limits, yes.
Okay. That's a perfect answer, right? Because we all have financial constraints, we have physical constraints, we have job type constraints, right? So I think bravo, right? Is everybody doing, you had a great answer there, is everybody doing all they can? I don't see a lot of people nodding, so bravo to you, sir, right? But at the end of the day, that's what this is about, right? Are we earning the commute? Are we upgrading our employees? Are we empowering them to do the best and giving them, and I agree with you, giving them the best that we can, because money runs out after a while, right? Or resources. Anybody have a question?
Have you found the measurement of productivity's changed since we've gone home? Because the first 30 to 60, 90 days, productivity went up because there was no traveling. You found people working through lunch, eating their lunch as they're working. And then what suddenly I'm finding creeping back in is I get somebody at the end of, hey, I got to step out and take my dog out. I'm like, you come to work, who the hell is taking your dog out?
Well, so I'm only giving you anecdotal data because I speak to a lot of people. They're seeing that productivity is going up because that person who's leaving for a half hour to walk their dog, right, is working an hour later or working the commute, right? And so that's what we're seeing. I can tell you for me, I don't work straight from 8 to 5 when I'm home, right? I think I get up, before I have my first cup of coffee, I answer all the international mails, all the chat, all the people that are going to be asleep by the time I actually get online. I go for a run. Honestly, there might be a little meeting there that says gone fishing, right? I live in East Hampton, why not go fishing for an hour? But I'm online till 10. So I know independently they're getting more than their 8, right? And if I keep working smarter, in the 6 I can do with the 8.
It's more like my world. I'm against my use teams. It's always on, so I'm literally never offline.
You mean your presence is always online?
Yeah, it's always because you get dinged. You'll get dinged, and then you're not going to sit there and ignore that because
Right.
it becomes the shit show the next day. So.
It's all the way you work. For me, I put on do not disturb. And I go away. I go to Starbucks, get a cup of coffee, do not disturb, and I come back. But if that's the way you work,
Yeah. Oh, well, it's kind of like you have to when you're the engineer on the train.
Yeah.
You don't get days off.
You don't
It's
get days off.
a suggestion to take them off, but
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions?
I think we got a couple questions.
Oh, good.
Okay, so we're kind of running behind a little bit. So, Gary, you going to be around?
I'm going to be around most of the day.
For the break? Okay.
Thank you
Anybody
so
else
much.
have
Have a great day.
questions? Thanks very